Welcome to the Cigar Rebel community, where indulgence meets authenticity. This is more than a podcast. It's a gathering place for those who savor life's luxuries with unapologetic passion. Here we celebrate the fine art of living through rich flavors, bold spirits, exquisite cigars, and unforgettable experiences.
Welcome, Cigar Rebels, to the podcast. I'm Mel.
And I'm Kevin, and we're coming to you live tonight to talk about Blind Cigar Reviews.
Yes, so this is going to be a great topic that a lot of people have been asking about, and so I'm excited. We can have fun with this, and we're going to talk about some ways to train your palate while we are smoking these blind.
Absolutely.
And learn about tobaccos, and even how to just enjoy it if you have friends over or you're wanting to just do something new.
Yeah, blind reviews are a great way to have a lot of fun, to train your team, as Mel said, all those kind of things. And we're going to talk about the purposes, how to set up a blind cigar review, and really the high-level scoring. We're going to come up in a few weeks with a topic on how to score a cigar and a really good way to take down lots of great notes. But in tonight's episode, just a high-level score so you can apply it during your blind review.
Yes, so tonight we are smoking what I honestly have no idea. These two cigars, I'm going to pick one at random, and we're just going to go on what's on top first.
Yep, there you go.
And so we are going to look at cutting and lighting these. I'm going to set these ones over here.
Absolutely.
And also, in case you're wondering, so we, like we talked about, we were planning on sharing a lot of good details, a lot of good ways about doing a blind taste like we're going to do tonight, or a blind test. And with that, the show may go a little bit longer since we've got two cigars. I've noticed normally if we've got more than one cigar to smoke, the show goes a little bit longer. And then also, if you see us utilizing our notes, we will be looking at those because we're going to be trying to pick out flavors in these blinds and also relating everything that we're going to be talking about. So
yeah, absolutely. And so Mel kind of alluded to this, but we had one of our followers, and we're not sure who it is, sent us a package with 4 cigars, 2 of each cigar, and then in an envelope that's currently under the ashtray back here, the bands. So we've not looked at the bands. We don't know what we're smoking tonight. So this is truly a blind cigar smoking experience for us. We thought about even joking and starting the episode with Mel and I wearing blindfolds so we couldn't see. I just wasn't really sure exactly how we could operate the podcast that way, as we don't typically have a producer. But maybe at some point in the future we'll do that. And so, Mel, you've just got yours cut, just started doing a cold draw. Any thoughts on the cold draw?
So right off the bat, it's real light. I don't get any huge explosive flavor notes just yet. A little bit maybe of some hay in there, maybe.
Yeah, I get a little bit of barnyard, a little bit of cedar, and I'm going to say this, it sounds really funny, but a little bit of honeysuckle. We had a honeysuckle bush that ran up our porch as I was a child. We used to peel them and then suck them off. I don't know if you ever did that as a kid, but it was one of those things that probably you would never imagine me doing, as I'm a germaphobe, but not as a kid I wasn't. And we just ran them out there all the time. It's just that light, sweet, earthy taste, but very on the sweetness.
Yeah. I don't know. So speaking of honeysuckle, I don't think I had honeysuckle until I was like 10 years ago. What color is that one? Because I'm thinking of honeydew. That's the green one.
Yeah, no, that's a cantaloupe. This is a little bitty flower, and it's got white things on it. And when you pick the flower up, there's a little bit of like dew or something on the end, and you'd suck that off.
I don't know that I've never done that for sure. 100% have never done that.
I used to love
never
honeysuckle.
Done that. So maybe
if you're watching tonight and you've had honeysuckle before, you got to put it in the comments for Mel to understand exactly what that is. But yeah, it was great. I loved it. But that's exactly, this probably does not taste like that. But that was the first memory I had. Mm-hmm. That cedary, that honeysuckle. And so, well, let's get going here tonight, and let's go ahead and get this cigar lit. Our lighting of our cigar tonight is brought to you by Big Sky Cigar Company.
Back in 1905, under Montana skies, 107 factories rolled smoke full eyes. Reminders of ranchers, light one and grin. Now Big Sky Cigar is bringing that spirit back in. Yellowstone River to the bold bighorn flow. Madison, Beirut, like what we know. Finally from Nicaragua, San Andres to Ecuador rolled up. And every box soul helps our veterans men. With warriors and quiet waters, we lend a friend's hand. It's heritage burning in every draw. Big Sky Cigars, Montana's pride and law. Big Sky Cigar, where heritage flows with every draw. Find your real red Big Sky Cigar to pop.
Ask your local tobacconist about Big Sky cigars today. If they do not carry them, shops can reach out to Brad Frazier to set up new accounts.
As always, a huge thank you to Big Sky for sponsoring the lighting of our cigar.
Absolutely. So the initial light of the cigar is excellent. Again, not knowing exactly what it is, but for those you can see, it looks like a beautiful Habano wrapper. We'll figure out what that is here a little bit later. My understanding is it doesn't look like there's a lot in that envelope, so I don't know if they have slips of paper or just the bands that tell us what it is. So we may have to look up what the wrapper is when we're done to make sure we have the right information. But it's got a sheen to it. It's a little oily. The wrapper's beautiful. That initial draw, any thoughts on just, on the first draw? It's hard to tell off just the first draw or two.
I get a tiny bit of spice or something on the finish. There's a tiny, tiny tingle on my tongue of that, spice at first. But so far, that's really all I'm picking up is it's real muted until the finish for me is a little bit more spicy.
Yeah, so there's a little bit of spice here to the cigar, just a little bit of citrusy spice, peppery to me. Kind of that mix between white pepper and citrus. People kind of get those mixed up. I talked about honeysuckle in the cold draw, which is really funny, and maybe it's on my mind today, but honeydew, the melon. Now we're talking about melons. There's a little bit of that freshness, not the flavor, but how after I blow out the smoke, my mouth feel is the finish is just very fresh on this cigar.
Interesting. Okay.
And the funny thing is, it makes me think I might know what this cigar is because there's one cigar that I get a freshness from. And I just had a conversation with somebody about it yesterday.
Okay.
So we'll see.
You want to say it now, or you want to hold on?
So I'll say what I think it is
Okay.
now. I think it's the 2025 Gold Star.
Interesting. Okay. So I think I have smoked 2 or 3 of those. And so now I'm trying to remember back to when we smoked them.
Well, we were at a bourbon night a couple of days ago, and I smoked one sitting next to somebody, and the conversation was the freshness of the palate. Only because, but I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
But we'll keep going on. There's definitely a freshness here. Wanting to get a little bit into our topic tonight and kind of going through that is in the cigar industry, the transparency and credibility are really paramount. There's so much going on and so much changing. As enthusiasts and as aficionados, they're increasingly seeking authenticity. They're increasingly looking for unbiased assessments. And because of that, blind reviews have become bigger and bigger in the industry. Smoking a cigar with the band on it or having gone and purchased that has a lot of biases tied to it. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit. So blind reviews have really become kind of the gold standard of several in cigar journalism, in cigar blogging, in cigar podcast. And that's transitioned since the mid-1990s when Cigar Aficionado came out and then became the 2000s of all the blogs. And now you have podcasts like ours. That blind review has really become the gold standard. But Mel, why don't you tell us exactly what are blind reviews and who's really conducting them?
Yeah, so blind reviews primarily are going to be undertaken by small or dedicated or dedicated circles of experienced reviewers and discerning publications. So everybody knows, a good example of this is everybody knows about, food bloggers or people who go and help choose if their restaurant is going to get a Michelin star. I would say that it is similar in the cigar world when we're talking about the discerning publications or the dedicated small people who are reviewing them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So these are not necessarily casual smokers. These are going to be people who are taking the time to really dive into what their palate is going to pick up on the cigar, and just honing that. And honestly, we talk about when you are blind testing a cigar and reviewing it, that is your sole focus. You're taking it almost like a test. Like,
yeah, so tonight we're drinking water.
Yep.
I've got water in my Yeti and then a backup bottle of water. Mel's got a bottle of water that she's added to her Yeti. So we're just drinking water. I did add a little bit of electrolytes to mine, but it's flavorless. Just been trying to get more of those in. And we talked about these blind reviews in these panels for the journals, but it's something a group of friends can get together and do as well.
Yeah, 100%.
I actually find it very interesting to have a very experienced reviewer and a novice try cigars. Like when we blended some of our newer cigars, we've had some very new cigar smokers and some very experienced cigar smokers. The output is very different, what you get from them, but it's uniquely interesting. And so really when we look about the blind review process as a whole, it's really where the reviewer assesses the cigar without the knowledge of brand or band or origin. They don't know the price. They don't know the tobacco origin or the country where it was rolled. There's no knowledge there about who the blender is, because sometimes that gives you a little bit of insight. And what it really does is it creates the opportunity to be objective. To be objective for the cigar and truly taste the cigar for what it is.
Yep.
It's not about price. It's not about brand. It's not about, oh, I love Roma Craft, or oh, I love United, or I love AJ Fernandez. It's about, how does this cigar stand on its own?
Yeah, 100%. And so with that, there are many respected entities in the cigar world that employ and do blind reviews. So those are going to be major publications like Cigar Aficionado and Half Wheel and Cigar Journal. They frequently are going to rely on these blind tastings. And then also you've got boutique blogs, you've got YouTube reviewers, independent cigar clubs, and a lot of people that have embraced just the practice to ensure that the rating remains impartial. And that's one of my favorite things to do when we're doing these blind testings. Is it could be something like, who knows, I could have hated the cigar the first time I was smoking it, but now smoking it blind, I have no bias, I'm just smoking it.
Yeah, we mentioned it before. We had a cigar blind review that we did with the Aria Connecticut and the Davidoff number 5 with the Davidoff rep.
Yeah. And
he chose the Aria as the Davidoff. Without the band, the two cigars side by side, sitting there, it really was one of those things that they chose that cigar. It's a great cigar.
Yeah.
And you're talking about a price point difference of $10 or $12, which is a huge difference. And so it's easy to look at that. And that's really where it's become such an important part. In the sophisticated world of cigars, in the nuance of premium cigars, perception truly is everything. Yet brand reputation, expensive price tag, or even an elegant packaging, all of those things subconsciously and kind of sophisticatedly impact your experience. And so it's really easy to go, man, I really love this cigar because it's an Opus X, or I'm loving this cigar because of this. But what it really does is it colors the consumer's judgment.
Yeah, 100%. And I would say, we talked about, we'll give people sometimes when we're doing, when we're releasing our new cigars, we'll be like, hey, smoke this. We don't tell them what it is. Don't give them a name. There's even been a couple times that we haven't told them it is going to be a cigar released by us, because we don't want to even have that bias in their head. Like, oh, they're releasing a new cigar, I'm sure I'm going to like it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, that's why blind reviews are so fun in groups, or as this like Cigar Journal, as you mentioned. I read that on the plane last week, flying back and forth from DC, and I had 2 different issues. I read one on the way there and one on the way back, which was wonderful. But my favorite thing is to read about their cigars, their reviews, and their ratings. And it's because all the preconceptions are gone. And the product truly speaks for itself. And let's be honest, there are real biases in the industry. There's pros and cons to knowing what the cigar is and what you're smoking. But what are some of the biases when it comes to smoking a cigar?
So I think 100% is prestige or brand bias. And this is going to be kind of like what we talked about even with ours. We don't want people to think this is going to be a great cigar because we like your stuff or because maybe they know us, so they don't want to say if it's bad. And this just occurs when the reviewer or the consumer's opinion is swayed by the reputation of a cigar brand. So I'm sure everyone knows someone maybe who only smoked one type of cigar, and if that's what you like, that's great. But there's a difference between that's what you like and there's this is what I like and it's the only thing that matters. It's the only good cigar there is. Again, being open to everybody's different palates.
Absolutely.
And this could also be a new release from a renowned or old world brand, maybe automatically held in a higher standard than a new brand or a boutique brand you've never heard of.
Absolutely.
And the halo effect of this bias is where a positive impression in one area, like brand recognition, creates a positive feeling in another area like taste. So you love Deadwood. So you know that the cigar you're going to take, the new Deadwood comes out, you're going to love it because it's a Deadwood. Doing it blind, you don't know it's Deadwood and you may actually not like it. So those are just a couple of examples of the brand bias. Another one is the price bias, which we've talked about. There's so many different cigars, so many different price points. Price does not always dictate if it is a great cigar.
Absolutely.
And in the retail environment, especially, there are some great high-priced cigars, and there are some great high-priced cigars that I've had a $10 or $15 cigar. In my opinion, personally, I think it's better. So, higher price tag can create the feeling that the cigar is going to be better than it is.
Yeah. So jumping in there real quick. At Story Cigars and Lounge, there's a house blend Corona that's a Maduro.
Yeah.
It's $6.99. That several of our members, it's in their top 2 or 3 cigars.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they love expensive cigars. They love $12 cigars. But putting that cigar up against a $25 cigar recently, they're like, I would buy the $6.99 one all the time. So that price bias is definitely there.
Oh, yeah. It's a lot like if you think about wine. Sometimes people will say the more expensive the wine, the better it's going to be. And I think any wine connoisseur, I will admit I am not a huge wine connoisseur, but I have several friends and my parents are. They would say that the price of the wine does not necessarily dictate that it is going to be a great, phenomenal wine.
Yeah, it made me think, and this is not on our list, but we should do a bourbon night where we get a group. And if this is something you guys would like to see, drop it in the comments. Maybe put a group together of 3 or 4 people and have a tasting panel and blind them on $28, $40, and $80 bottles of bourbon, maybe even $100 and something bottle, and see if they can. And we can host that and then have that group. That might be a fun night.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Do blind bourbon tasting. I know we did a blind bourbon tasting just a few weeks ago where we were kind of blind tasting and aromas. This would be more around price bias, which I think would be a very interesting episode.
Yeah. So just thinking about those different biases, the price bias, the cigar, the price does not necessarily reflect how good that cigar is going to be.
Absolutely. You also have marketing bias, and marketing bias really is the color, the impact, the style of band. One of the things that's very simple is Romacraft, and I was just noticed as we were sitting here, we were smoking the Baca a little bit earlier in our pre-gaming, setting up for the show. I mean, this is such a simple, easy band that it doesn't really have this standout, right? But now that Romacraft has built up a reputation, a lot of people see that simple white band with a colored band over it and immediately think that is a full-bodied cigar too strong for me. And the reality is, not all of the Romacraft cigars are super strong. It really is one of the things that they have mediums, they have fulls, but that marketing bias, and it works in both ways. It can be a real simple band that people just don't think it's a good cigar. They think it's cheap, so they're not going for it. Also, the marketing bias of if they're a company owned by another company. A lot of the boutique brands out on the market today that come out are really owned by 5 or 6 of the larger cigar companies, and people immediately swarm to it because of that marketing bias. Oh, this is something that's really being produced by General Cigar, or this is really being produced by. And so that's a big deal. And the other thing is, when you look at the infused market, their marketing is brilliant, but you don't ever know if you're getting a sweet tipped or a truly infused that's just flowery and florally and all these things. And so marketing bias is there, and it's definitely there in all products, but the cigar industry heavily has marketing bias. And then confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is this, and this crosses across all industries, but it's infiltrated the cigar industry for sure. And that is that people buy a cigar with the thought of trying to get certain flavors out of it. We have a buddy, and I'm not going to throw him under the bus, but was all the time trying to pick up the flavors that other people were picking up out of that cigar. So they kept buying it, and they were buying it just because they wanted to pick up that flavor. But it really wasn't like an infused cigar flavor. It was a palate or a finish it tasted like. And so that's one of those things that you really run across, and it's pretty interesting when you do that.
Yeah, and then there are 2 others that are worth mentioning as we're going through our blind tasting. One is novelty bias. So these are new or unique products that may be rated more favorably simply because they are novel. You might have some excitement around a limited edition release, and sometimes that can be overshadowed by the actual qualities of the cigar and leading up to an overly positive review that may not hold up over time. The other is the contextual bias, and that is the setting and the company in which a cigar is smoked can influence to you how good it is. And this, I think, is true in so many other ways than just cigars. It can be a dinner. It can be
Absolutely.
It can be a movie you went and saw that you had a great time with your friends and went and saw it, and then you got it, you streamed it months later, and it was like, this movie really wasn't that good.
Well, here's a really great example of that's honest is if you saw the podcast just a couple of weeks ago, it might have been last week. It's been a really busy season. With Dan Thompson of McAllis Cigars, we smoked the green on that episode with him that's coming out September 8th. It was phenomenal. He was very generous and sent a couple home with us. A couple of days later, sitting at our lounge, I smoked it with some friends. It was just as good. But I wanted to make sure it wasn't just this high-level bar because of where and whom I was with, which would be very easy to fit that contextual bias, right? Experiences are great. I've heard of somebody going to Napa Valley and they bought a whole case of wine because it was just spectacular. And then they get home and go, what were we thinking? You're on this euphoric high for the experience, and so everything tastes great.
Yeah.
But with that, on a caveat, Mel, that's why where you become a lounge member, the people that you enjoy cigars with, it's important where that is and who that is.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
So let's check in on the cigar.
Yeah, I was just about to say, I'm not getting tons of transition yet. It's still sitting pretty much the same for me. I'm still picking up those same kind of flavors as in.
Yeah, that freshness has gone away a little bit on the finish. I am definitely still picking up a little bit of that peppery, citrusy. That barnyard that was on the cold draw and on the initial light's kind of gone for me. With that freshness, it's almost transitioned over a little bit to maybe a hint of caramel. And what I mean by that is the smoke is thicker. When I blow it out, when I retrohale, you get a little bit of that thickness and there's a little bit of sweetness to it. It's kind of when I pick up on that. Are you getting that at all?
A little bit, yeah. Also a little bit, I'm trying to think of, I get a tiny bit maybe of, we talk about when you have a campfire going, there's that char or something just real. If I let the smoke kind of linger before I am exhaling it away, there's a little bit of that char in there, tiny bit.
I can see that. Very light
It's
for me.
very light, but it's there.
I've been dealing with a little bit of stuffiness the
Mhm.
last few days. In a moment, we're going to get to some blind reviews that address each of these, or how blind reviews address each of these biases. But one made a comment out. Funny you mentioned that. I've been working on a few blinds.
Awesome.
Definitely love that. Heck, one, we might have to have you help us run a blind. That would be a fun experience. Have you and a couple of other guys on the podcast, and us. You could maybe Mel and I and a couple other people could taste the bourbons, and you could blind us, and maybe we could determine what the price point is. Definitely always hard to pick up flavors that way, but definitely a fun and enjoyable experience.
Yeah. And notice, I'm sure it was just choice of words, but he said working on a couple of blinds. Some people, when they think of blind testing, they're like, that's the easiest thing. You're so lucky. And the thing is, it's awesome. It's awesome to get to take a cigar and to try and, rate it, decide what flavors you're pulling out. But as we said earlier, it can be, if you've got 10 blind cigars you're testing, it can turn into work. You've got to schedule time. There's some cigars we have not gotten to yet that we talked about the other day. We just need to schedule time because we need clean palate. We need to have a solid hour or two to really dive into those.
Yeah, and so this is the unique thing. We took 5 of our blends that we blend out of the Dominican Republic and took those blends, those tobaccos, and had a company out of Costa Rica that grows Costa Rican tobacco make those same blends, the same priming of the Seco, the same priming with the same varietal seed, but grown somewhere else, just to see what that is. And we've smoked one of them. It was excellent. Matter of fact, we smoked the version of what really became Velvet Smooth in that, and it was really good. We have not smoked the others at all. And so we've had them in our humidor for probably 2-3 months now.
Yep.
Maybe more, and just have not gotten around to it because how busy it is.
Yeah.
And it's work.
And we look at them. We look at them and we see them. And every time we see them, we're like, all right, we got to make time for that.
Absolutely.
It's almost every day.
So one thing I do want to talk about this, when you're doing a blind review, this is very important. The aroma is important, both pre-light and post-light. This cigar has a great aroma. That's maybe where I'm picking a little bit more of that char is on the aroma. The burn is excellent. It's got a little bit of a large carbon line or a mascara or a burn line, depending on what you. It's burning a little wonky. It's a little rigidy. But the reality is we're in a room with a lot of airflow, and so that could definitely be impacting that. The draw is excellent.
Yeah.
It's very light, but not so much that I'm just drawing air.
Yeah. And looking for, it could be because I'm moving my hands a lot, but I also sometimes, actually when I'm doing a test, I'll also look at the ash. Does it seem like it can hold an ash? Do I need to ash a little bit quicker? This one, looking at it, seems a little bit more flaky. I ashed it pretty quickly because I saw some cracks in there and I didn't want to wear it. So I don't necessarily put that in a deciding factor on if it's a good cigar or not. I look at that because in general, I can get a pretty long ash on a cigar without thinking about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so let's move back into some of the blind review and how that overcomes the biases.
Yes. So you want to talk first?
Yeah, I'll jump in.
Sure.
So blind tasting is really a rigorous framework, but don't be mistaken that it's just for professionals. I know we've said it's become the gold standard of professionals, but it's really something you can do with buddies. And we're going to tell you here in a little bit how to set up a blind review for a group, how to set up a blind review with just a buddy, and some of those ways, and we're going to talk about that. Before we get to that, though, let's overcome these biases. And really, a blind review really eliminates the brand and price bias. In a blind review, there's no box, there's no band, there's nothing to suggest who it's made by, what tobaccos are in it, what the price is. And so you really get an opportunity to smoke the cigar for what it is, which is a premium product.
Yep.
You don't know if you're smoking an $8 cigar or a $25 cigar. And you're judging them equally depending on the experience right now in the present. And it really levels the playing field in the cigar smoking experience, and it ensures a merit-based evaluation. It also neutralizes any of the marketing or visual cues. We have a buddy, Jace, who absolutely loves McAuliffe Blue. And just about any cigar that comes out with a blue band, Big Sky has a blue band. It's Bighorn. Yeah, Bighorn has the blue sky on there. And then you have him smoking the new McAuliffe Blue, and he's loving all of them. But I think he's loving them because it's blue.
Yeah.
Right? Because he fell in love with McAuliffe Blue.
Yep.
But that is all gone. And so the physical appearance, the wrapper, the sheen, the oiliness, is it toothy? Is it velvety? The burn line, the ash, all of that becomes your visual cues and not the marketing or the band or the box. And so it completely eliminates those biases.
Mm-hmm. Yes, 100%. It also will force an honest sensory evaluation. So as we've talked about, you have no knowledge or any expectation of what you're going to experience, and so your taste and your smell are on full alert. You have to actively identify and describe flavors in the cigar without relying on marketing like we've talked about, and look for your own notes to put in there so you can score it effectively.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that I just want to call out again for those that have joined us is we're smoking 2 blind cigars. We have another one to light up here in a minute. Normally we like to continue to reference what the cigar is so you know what we're smoking.
Yeah.
We do not know what this is. Someone has sent this to us and we're super excited to be smoking it. And we're really been able to do this, right?
Yeah.
I have an idea of what I think this is, but
Mm-hmm.
that's a real, I've kind of put that aside
Yeah.
once I said it and we're working on it. And so really appreciate you guys coming along for this ride.
When we did those bourbon blinds with JV a couple, like last month or a couple episodes back, I don't think we got any of those right.
We got everyone something wrong. And man, I knew what one of them was. I absolutely knew what it was. And that bourbon was not even in the lineup.
Yeah.
And I don't know how I missed the one that I thought was it, because I love both. And so appreciate you guys coming along with this journey. I apologize.
No, you're good. The other thing is that it manages the novelty effect, kind of like we had talked about. So, like for an example, when Plasencia released the one with their blue band, I'm trying to blank on the name right now, the newest one.
Cello.
Yes, I had super high expectations for it because I really enjoy the Sixto. And
Absolutely.
that one is probably one of my favorite Plasencia cigars. So my expectations for it were a little high. So I went into it probably even giving it in my head a little bit better of a review than I would have had I smoked it blind. And so again, not knowing what this is, you don't have anything in the brand to compare it to because we have no idea what the brand is.
Yep, absolutely. Want to say hi to a couple of you guys following along. Kevin Langston, appreciate the shout out. Leslie of the Corns joined us, which is awesome. Dwayne, man, love to see you guys on. Appreciate y'all following along with Cigar Rebel. What a great night to be experiencing this cigar. And sorry, my fingers were wet and my notes turned off. As we're looking at these things and really overcoming the biases we talked about, an important factor is controlling the environment. You know, for a formal blind review, you talked a little bit earlier on that bias of the contextual experience. The taste and environment is typically controlled to minimize kind of external distractions. Mm-hmm. You know, we're really not able to maybe do the best job reviewing these tonight because we're managing the podcast, we're talking to you guys, but it is a fun time to truly be enjoying a cigar and trying to separate out what the flavors are, what the aroma is. You'll see me, I'm drinking a lot of water tonight. I've already gone through a bottle and a half and we're just about 30 minutes in because I'm really wanting to cleanse my palate between draws, swishing that around. And so it really helps us figure out what those flavors are and not have a contextual or experiential experience, but truly judge the cigar.
Yeah, 100%. And I would say I know that we have 2 to get to, so I'm probably smoking this one a little bit quicker than I would be if we were just, hey, let's review this cigar. 100% for me. But ultimately, the blind tastings, they don't eliminate the subjectivity of taste, but they are the most effective tool available for ensuring a reviewer based on the merits of the product itself. And they empower whoever is reviewing them to provide a more truthful assessment and help consumers make more informed purchasing decisions because, again, they're not going in with any of those biases.
Yeah,
so we're saying biases a lot because I feel like that is a huge role if you know what the cigar is, you could have a leaning one way or the other too, if you like it or not.
Absolutely. To really start off this episode, we wanted to talk about the biases first, because that's the number one reason you do a blind review, is to get rid of all of the preconceived ideas that come with marketing, that come with price, that come with brand. One of the things that we really were able to do recently is we were in Salem, New Hampshire, and we're able to have some of the guys at Two Guys smoke some of our cigars. We were very blessed to have Agnes smoke some on our podcast. We've had some of the other guys throughout the few days we were there. And I'm not going to say who, but one of the people took the band off, threw it away, and lit it and started smoking it. And the first thing he said was, "This doesn't taste very Dominican-y." He's like, which is pretty good, because he's not a big Dominican tobacco smoker. And I was very proud of that, because I think Dominican Republic, it's my favorite tobacco, so I'm biased. But not every tobacco grown, if you're doing the right fermenting process, tastes like Dominican tobacco. And I feel like we're on our factory with the farm that we're partnered with, and there's some good fermentation processes, and it's hard to figure that out. And so that's one of the things that really overcomes that.
Yeah, 100%. All right, let's go ahead and we'll take a short break. And when we come back, we're going to cover cigars that have shocked the reviewer doing the blind review, and brands that have been impacted by blind reviews. And we're going to teach you how to set up a blind review, and we will get to that second cigar.
We'll be right back.
We fell in love with cigars not because of the flavors or smoking experience or perceived status, but because it allows barriers to fall between other humans and build deeper connections. For that reason, we've been super intentional to curate a space where people can find community and enjoyment with others, and cigars just happen to be the way we're doing it. For that reason, we are thrilled to be the one and only cigar retail store and lounge in downtown Lufkin. A good story is one of the most powerful tools used to connect with another human. Sharing stories fades out differences and highlights similarities found in the details, or with the storyteller. Over the years, we have seen some of the best stories told over cigars, and thus, new friendships are made, passions shared, encouragement given, and so much more. The impact storytelling has on the human connection is why we've decided to name our store and lounge Stories. Because behind every good cigar and conversation is an even better story.
Source Elevate is a consulting firm that focuses on providing resources, insight, and experience to elevate your performances. Our team's 30-plus years of experiences in executive leadership positions provide the foundation of knowledge that we provide to our clients. Allow us to elevate your company's mission, vision, and objectives over short, mid, and long-term initiatives that drive results and source new opportunities.
As always, a huge thank you to all of our sponsors. We went ahead and cut our cigars during the break. And the first thing I said, I took a couple cold draws, is just on the cold draw, it tastes very familiar to me. Like, I 100% know I've smoked this cigar before, probably more than once, just based on, given the foot of the cigar smell, doing a couple cold draws on it.
Yeah. So no, the cigar's got a great aroma to it. The cold draw, and honestly, the aroma's there a little bit. It's almost a coffee-esque, and it might be because on the cold draw I'm kind of getting like brewed dark roast.
Okay.
Like, it's that bitter, right? It kind of bites a little bit, and it's very earthy.
Yeah, I can see that. All right, ready to go ahead.
Go ahead.
I didn't know if you lit yours or not yet.
I didn't light mine yet. And so while we're doing that, we're going to go ahead, and if you are following along tonight, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Make sure you follow along at Cigar Rebel on Facebook and Instagram. And as always, join the Cigar Rebel community, where you can share your experiences of the cigars you're smoking, the pairings that you're pairing with it, and maybe some fantastic food that you are enjoying along the way. Before we jump further into this, let's go ahead and talk about the upcoming shows on September 1st, just next week. It's hard to believe it's September, but Labor Day will be going live with cigar terminology, key terms and lingo for any cigar enthusiasts. Then on September 8th, we'll have cigar pricing, impact of tariffs and regulation on the cigar industry. Mel, tell us what's going on after that.
On September 15th, we are doing Beyond the Brand, and we are talking about the art of cigar packaging. And then on September 22nd, we are doing the leaf, the layers, and the lore. We're going to dive into the complex world of tobacco, and we're going to uncover secrets of the leaf. So you don't want to miss some of those. I think they'll be very informative. I think they'll be fun to talk about. My computer turned off,
Absolutely.
so.
Yeah, going to be talking about those. And one of the things, we may end up bumping that schedule back just a little bit because we are going to be going to the New England Cigar Expo here shortly, and just want to make sure that we have some footage from that. So we might end up doing a recap show and bumping that schedule back a little bit. But we're really excited about all of those. Also, would love to have you guys comment today what you're smoking, what you're pairing with your cigar, and just let us know what you're enjoying as we're now smoking the second Blind cigar. This is a very dark wrapper. It's not super oily or toothy like you would get on a traditional Maduro. That could mean that it's aged a little bit longer, or it was chemically. There's a couple of ways to make a Maduro. Aging it longer on the plant, aging it longer in the paloon in the fermentation process, and then some factories will add a little bit of acidic base spray to them as they are aging the cigars, which kind of ages them a little quicker. But this one doesn't have a lot of oiliness to it to me. The aroma, now that it's lit, is very, very deep, earthy. Definitely still getting that bitterness like from a coffee or maybe a burnt espresso.
Yeah, I was wondering that same thing.
So a compelling example of a cigar that really performed differently in a blind tasting and really blew the reviewers away was when Drew Estates came out with the Liga Privada Papas Fritas. The Liga Privada line by Drew Estates was known to be this powerful, punching, high-end cigar. It had a $18 to $23 price tag depending on the cigar. And suddenly they announced they're coming out with this mixed filled cigar called Papas Fritas. The expectation, because of the legendary reputation of Liga Privada, the number 9, the T52, many enthusiasts approached Papas Fritas as if it's going to be a lower quality, less punchy cigar. And there was really this preconceived notion it was going to be a lesser smoke. It used mixed filler. It was a significantly lower price point. And so they really thought this was a scaled down cigar, trading complexity for convenience.
Yes, and so many expected the Papas Fritas to be decent, but nowhere near outstanding, and that it was a short smoke that was more of a novelty cigar than a serious contender. And then they did the blind tasting reveal.
Absolutely.
And in the blind review, the Papas Fritas consistently scored higher than expected, and critics were just
They were
confounded, dumbfounded. They were just so shocked that that was what they were smoking, and it was delighting consumers. So reviewers, they consistently praised the cigar, that it was rich and had well-balanced flavor profiles. They had notes of earth in there, cedar, coffee, and pepper. And the flavor experience was engaging and nuanced, and exceeding the typical expectations for a mixed filler cigar.
One of the really crazy things about this is it performed almost near flawlessly. I mean, it really did perform at a flawless level, and consumers were delighted, and reviewer after reviewer continued to give it high scores, high praise. And really, one reviewer, and I wrote it down, said small format, big flavor. And so the Papas Fritas delivered in a blind review a significant impact on the cigar industry and consumer behavior. In fact, it really championed boutique cigars and a lower price point. It was one of the first few in that transitional point that people started having conversations around, does price point does mixed versus long filler really play that big of an impact in the quality of a premium cigar? And it also really built brand reputation. What it really showed is that a master blender, an experienced factory, could produce a lower cost premium cigar at a high level flavor and strength. I drew a word, performance. That's not really what I almost said, platform, and that's not the word. But it could really produce a flavorful, high quality cigar at a decent or lowered price. And we've seen other brands launch this way and just absolutely dominate with a high quality cigar at a reasonable price point. The Caliph Color Series, for example, is one of those.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely one of those things. The experience of the reviewer impacts the quality of the cigar when they're looking at it. And so they looked at this cigar and said, Papas Fritas was exceptional.
Yeah, 100%. And both, I think it's important to mention, both experienced reviewers and novice reviewers brought their unique strengths when they were reviewing that cigar, really any cigar they're reviewing, and it just passed the test, I think, for everybody who was blinding it. So,
well, I think let's talk about what is an experience and what's a novice experience. From an experienced reviewer, it's somebody that's almost like a sommelier.
Yeah.
Someone who's a wine sommelier or a bourbon sommelier, a master distiller who's spent years honing their skills. That's one type of reviewer. Then you have a novice reviewer who is somebody who maybe they're new to cigars, or maybe they're somebody that for the last 5, 6, 10 years have just enjoyed a cigar, and now they're wanting to get into learning palate and flavor and notes. And both of them bring a lot to the table when you're reviewing a cigar. That's the other thing, that when you look at Cigar Journal, Cigar Aficionado, and then you look at all these bloggers and YouTubers that are out there doing cigar reviews, not all of them have years and years of experience, but each of them are bringing something very unique to the table to help us as consumers, to help us in the industry understand how cigars are perceived, how they're tasted, and how they're enjoyed.
100%. Yeah, so when we talk about some of those things, we can talk about, they have, whether you are experienced or whether you're novice, there's enhanced sensory perception in there. So that is, an expert is going to have more developed than
more nuance,
a more developed and more nuanced vocabulary, wider library, even of just when you're remembering flavors of the cigar. There's some people who will be like, I get, sauteed green pepper, I get the fat of a ribeye. And then there are people who, when they review it, they say, I just like it. Like, I can't pull out those specific flavors, but I just know that I like it. There's contextual knowledge, which you don't know the cigar's identity. Like we've talked about here, we don't know either of these cigars' identities. But an expert can often deduce the certain characteristics based on the blind tasting, and they might recognize the regional tobacco characteristics or the hallmarks of the specific blending style, which also allows for a more informed and contextualized review. And I would say, to that, like, we have been many places where we can figure out, not knowing what the filler is or the binder, smoking it, we can pick it out. And sometimes so, to the direct region.
Yeah. So on this, I'm not positive, but I would guess that this is Nicaraguan tobacco with an Ecuadorian wrapper. I don't think it's San Andreas wrapper. It doesn't have that punchiness to it. There's definitely some notes and flavors there that remind me of Nicaraguan tobacco. I mentioned earlier, I love Dominican tobacco. That's been my first love when it comes to tobacco, but have come to really enjoy lots of tobaccos coming out of Nicaragua, especially specific regions like Condega and Jalapa. I don't know that I could choose a region for this at the moment, but definitely am enjoying it. What do you think about the cigar so far?
Yeah, my first thought when I held it before I lit it or did a cold draw, my first thought was, it reminds me of the M81 that is in this size.
Yeah.
I don't believe that's what it is, but
I don't think it's strong enough
It's
for that.
not. I mean, well, and I do not. So the M81 is one of my favorite cigars. It's in my top 7, but I generally do the Corona size. And so, I mean, one of our friends talk about how that's not the grown-up size because his favorite size is a bigger size than that. But that is my favorite size, I think, because you can pull off so many more flavors.
Yeah, talking briefly again and just jumping right back into an experienced reviewer, they really bring consistency and calibration. Consistently, they have more consistent scores, more consistent ratings when you're looking at that. And then also, expert reviewer typically has an improved quality assessment. They're able to judge the burn, the draw a little bit better than a novice. However, novices bring a lot to the review as well. Pure unfiltered opinion is one of the great things that they bring to the table. They're really unburdened by an encyclopedic knowledge. They're also not so focused on this is A, B, C, or this is this tobacco, or this is this flavor. They're really just experiencing or judging the experience and the accuracy of how much they're enjoying it. When we're blending cigars and trying to decide what's going to come to the market, there's a real value to just having some novice or amateur, if you want to call it that, people who don't review cigars for a living, smoke it and then go, man, this is really good, or I would smoke that, or these are the qualities I get. And we're really looking for burn, enjoyment, pleasure, way more than we're looking for char, caramel, saltiness. And, that novice also can talk a little bit about the direct appeal. Are they enjoying it? Do they have buddies that they think would enjoy it? It lets you know a little bit around the impact of mass appeal, because the reality is there's some highly rated cigars that most people don't enjoy. They're pretty mild cigars that have a really high rating, or they're a really strong cigar that has a really high rating. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to appeal to the masses. It also challenges assumptions with the novice. They're just really trying to decide, is it enjoyable?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and there are also a lot of brands that have been positively impacted by reviews. One of those is the Foundation Cigar Company. And why they stand out is Foundation has repeatedly performed exceptionally well in many of the blind reviews from major publications, and also again from independent review sites and people who are
another company that's really found an advantage in blind reviews is Dunbarton. Steve Saka, former executive of Drew Estates, went out on his own, launched Dunbarton Tobacco and Trust, and came out with cigars. And what's really these blind reviews have continued to show is he is producing high quality cigars over and over again. I've heard Steve on podcasts say, if you're looking for a value cigar, that's not us. We're producing cigars at a price that I can bring the highest quality at the lowest price to the market, and that's where this price falls. And he stands on that. And so if they were reviewing just on Dunbarton or just on price, I don't think he would get the same fair shake that he's getting when they blind review his cigars and score them 90 plus time and time again. It's a whole lot easier for a consumer to spend $16, $18 on one of his cigars.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And then Cigar Leaf, it really stands out. They started as a farming company, and now they're an integrated company, farming and blending. It was formerly known as Casa Fernandez. And when they rebranded and started having the blind reviews, Cigar Leaf was reviewing super high, mid 80s for some of their lower cigars, up into the high 90s, and it just cemented them as a new brand as they rebranded.
Yeah. Another one is HBC cigars. So they stand out because HBC, which is short for Havana City, this is a boutique brand known for its dedication in traditional Cuban flavors. So those are a couple of examples of some brands that have had great feedback from some blind tastings or testings. I say testing, whichever you're doing.
So let's check on the cigar real quick.
We'll go ahead and check in on the cigar.
As we jump in, I want to comment that Jay Dwayne is smoking and innovating one right now, Mel. His review is a little bit of a tight draw, but excellent flavor notes.
Yeah.
Love the M81. It's not my favorite, as Mel mentioned, is hers, but really enjoy smoking those. Again, the Corona size being my preferred. But going to this cigar, I still get that burnt espresso flavor note. There's hints of chocolatey notes to it and on the finish, but that's on the exhale, right? After I've blown out the smoke, the finish is there, the lingering, almost like a bitterishy dark chocolate. So very bittery notes throughout. Excellent cigar. Please don't hear me saying the bittery notes means this is a bitter cigar that's not good. I think this is smoking excellently. I've got a phenomenal ash with really no hint of it falling or cracking.
And I would say, like, for strength, to me, I'm not getting, when you talk about the strength of a cigar, I'm getting some good flavor notes, but I don't pick up a lot of strength yet so far in this cigar.
Yeah, I would say this is a solid medium minus. From there, with the medium minus to this cigar, it definitely has some great flavor notes. The right thing to say about this cigar, which I find kind of funny, and I apologize at the loss of words for a second, it's very dark. It's got a very rich color. I fell into the stereotype that I was expecting somebody to give us a more medium-ishy cigar to smoke, because I felt like this came in very, very mild to medium, and then to give us a very strong cigar to smoke, and that's not really what we're enjoying here. This is probably a solid medium to medium minus. It may pick up. We're only an inch and a half into it. I'm not even through the first third, so it may pick up. But I'm really enjoying it. Are you enjoying this cigar?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what it is.
Yeah.
Because I know I've smoked it plenty of times.
I have zero guesses on this cigar.
But I don't know that I have a guess at this point in time.
I thought Hoya Oscuro, based on the darkness, but that's a much oilier wrapper, and that doesn't mean every cigar is always that way, but I've smoked several of those.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this is quite dark enough for that, so I definitely probably wouldn't choose that. Do you have any thoughts at all what you think it might be?
Not yet. I'm seeing if I get any sort of transition or anything through I feel like I said, I know I've smoked it before, so I feel like I should be able to pick it out. But
Perfect. Let's jump a little bit into the Blind Cigar Review. We're going to talk about a couple things, wrapping up this part of it, and then we're going to go into how you can set up a blind review before we close tonight. But just want to talk about publications and cigar clubs set up blind reviews really to maintain their reputation for impartiality and to engage their audience with some trustworthy content. It's a great way. Like I said, I read Cigar Journal on the way to DC and a different issue on the way home from DC on flights last week. It's also a way for manufacturers to set up and test their blends with multiple markets, both with expert reviewers and novice reviewers. And it's really a way for retailers to curate what they're going to bring into inventory. We do blind reviews occasionally here at Stories as we're developing this podcast. I'm like, man, we really got to do that more often and just give our staff, hey, smoke this and tell us what you're thinking.
yeah,
Regardless of why you're doing a blind review, it's a lot of fun.
it is. Yeah, I'm enjoying not knowing what I'm smoking, to be honest. It's nice to, we always can put forth, hey, we're smoking this tonight. It's nice tonight to, we're not able to do that. It's also important to keep in mind that doing this review, as we've talked about, it's not just for publications or for large clubs. It can be something that you do alone or with another person or even with a small group of friends. And there's multiple ways and methods to structure the blind reviews, but there's three main ones that really dominate the industry. The first one of those is going to be unbanded cigars with coated labels. This is the most common approach, is to remove the cigar's original band and replace it with a coated label known only to whoever is organizing it, and the reviewers receive the cigars without any identifying marks. The second one is opaque sleeves or blindfolded tasting events. You joked about doing a tasting event today, a blindfolded event today. We joked about it. I was like, I don't know that I want to be blindfolded the whole time, maybe in the beginning. And in this way, you are in live tasting events or panels. Cigars may be placed inside the sleeves that cover the band entirely, or reviewers may be handed unmarked sticks, kind of like we were given today.
Mm-hmm.
And this is particularly popular at cigar festivals and trade shows.
Yeah, so jumping in here real quick, Mel, the local. Before we opened Stories, we were doing a process of rolling out some new cigars for the Elevated Humidor. One of the things we really did is we put into a Saturday morning once a month. We had a group of about 8 or 9 guys that were showing up regularly, and we were bringing them 2 cigars, one that we wanted to be the cigar and one that we thought was close but not quite there. And 6 out of 6 times, they went with the cigar that we wanted. And again, we didn't give them any preconceived ideas. We switched up. Did they smoke the first one or the second one, in what order? But guys really, really enjoyed that. And it was a great opportunity for us to get great feedback. We had people there smoking their 5th cigar, and we had people there smoking their probably 5,000th cigar.
Yeah.
And we were getting great feedback throughout that. A couple things I wanted to throw out before we move on. Leslie of the Corn said she's smoking the Camacho Nicaragua, an excellent cigar. Kevin Langston mentioned he was smoking the Baca Bantu, which I mentioned that's what I was smoking in our pregame.
Yep.
And really noticed that Jay Dwayne said he's not heard of that one. And so, Jay, I know we're going to see you here in just a few weeks. I'll make sure to bring one for you to have to enjoy. And then Leslie is asking if we're having any of our cigars at the expo, and we definitely will. We'll bring some in and have a time. Would definitely love to get together at one of the 2 guys' shops and have an afternoon where we can smoke Elevated Humidor cigars. And some news is we're hoping that you might be able to procure them when you're there. That's in conversation, so we're excited about that, and have been talking with Dave and the guys there at 2 Guys about carrying our cigars. We're believing that's going to happen, but we don't want to put the cart before the horse. But anyway, we definitely can enjoy some here in New Hampshire shortly. Yep. But also, we'll bring one of those Bacas for Jay Dwayne and Leslie to try. We've got several in our humidors. So
yeah, awesome. So going back to how to organize this for yourself or a group of friends. We did the first 2. The third one is that third-party controlled panel. And that is a neutral party selects and distributes cigars to reviewers without disclosing any identifying details. After all the reviews are submitted, the brands and blends are revealed. This system adds another layer of impartiality, since even the organizers may not know the brands until the end.
Yeah, absolutely. Another really easy way to do this is the exchange system. Have a buddy, maybe you don't even live in the same city, unbanned cigars, you mail them a package, they mail you a package, or like in examples of like Mel and I, sometimes we've done this only a couple of times. We should do it more often. She'll choose a cigar and take the band off. I'll choose a cigar from my humidor and take the band off. We'll swap and smoke them and see if we can figure out what the cigar is. A lot of fun doing that. You can do that with friends, maybe have some buddies over, light a fire, grill some steaks, and afterwards hand them out a bunch of, you know what it is, but none of them do. That's a fun opportunity. Or even maybe have your spouse or a buddy swing by and pick some up at a local cigar shop and unban them before he gives them to you. Lots of great ways to set this up. Super easy. And here's the fun part. Once you get done smoking them, now you get to score them.
Yeah. And the scoring of cigars, I enjoy it. And then sometimes I also don't enjoy it because I hate to think of giving it a too high or too low of a score at the end. But there are some slightly different ways that you can score a cigar, but most of them use a 100-point scale broken down into key categories. So for a simple review process, when we're doing it, we use the following. We do construction, which is 0 to 25 points, and this considers the draw, the burn, the ash kind of, as I had mentioned earlier, and overall craftsmanship. Again, that one is 0 to 25 points. Next is going to be the flavor, that is 0 to 50 points. And that is going to evaluate the complexity, the balance, the evolution of the flavors throughout the smoke. And then lastly is the overall experience, which is 0 to 25 points, which gets you to 100, in case you weren't doing the math on that.
Yeah.
That reflects the cigar's harmony, the enjoyment factor, and whether it met expectations as a premium product. So what is a good cigar? What is a good score for a cigar?
Absolutely. Before I get to that, I want to talk about, this is the simple scoring process. When we're blending cigars or we're doing more critical scoring, we have an 11 category breakdown where everything's worth 10 points. 2 of them are only worth 5 that gets us to 100. That's a more complex process. This is the simple for an enjoyable, fun experience. And so when you're looking at this, 0 to 25 construction, flavor is 50, overall experience is 25. I'm going to score this cigar using that. I would say construction's a 25. It's burning. Mm-hmm. It's got a super small carbon line. The ash is good. It's held great. I ashed it just so I'm not wearing it. I talk with my hands. And so I'd give it 25. On flavor, 0 to 50, I would probably give this a 45. I'm enjoying it. So, now we're at 70 points, right? Mm-hmm. So at that point, it's a cigar, right? It's a good cigar. Now, overall experience enjoying it, I would probably give it somewhere between an 18 and 20. I'm not getting a robust flavor out of it. I really am enjoying the bitterness of that kind of roasted or burnt espresso. So for that would really put this right about an 88 to 90 score. So what that really means is 95 to 100 is exceptional. 90 94 is outstanding. 80 to 89 is very good to excellent. 70 to 79 is average to good. And 0 to 69 is not recommended. I'll tell you that one of the really big things that a lot of cigar reviewers say is a 70 is the lowest they're going to give a cigar. Cigar Journal talks about that. They've only ever given one review below 70. And one of the reasons why is if it burns, if it draws, it deserves a 70. So they're really talking about 80 plus being the mark that you need to hit to reach consumers. And so I like to think of that when I'm smoking a cigar and reviewing. I might have picked up a bad one. So if we smoke a cigar that when I get done rating it, I'm going, man, this really is kind of closer to a low 70 or lower, I'm actually going to smoke a second one before I score it, because I really do want to make sure that we are giving it a good score.
Yeah.
Hey, shout out to Kilt Man John. Great to have you with us.
Yeah. And I would also say, so like on that construction, for me, for this cigar, my wrapper is cracking a little bit. Mm-hmm. So if I was probably by myself, I would probably take off a little bit of points for that. But seeing like we're doing it together, yours doesn't have any of that issue.
0.
So for me, it could have been something when I cut it or something like that. So I don't know that this time I would take anything off for that. But if I was doing it by myself and the wrapper was cracking or something like that, I probably would.
Yeah, absolutely. And so one important thing to remember is a cigar review and the scoring is simply a summary. It's the number. The real truth comes in the flavor notes, the enjoyment, the smoking experience. And sometimes I look at a score, like I've mentioned this several times, reading that Cigar Journal, there was a couple in the mid 80s that I've smoked and said, I really, really enjoyed that cigar. And so it doesn't bother me they got an 80. That day, that reviewer, maybe it was out of their profile, the average of the reviewers reviewing it, and that's okay because the experience was there. The number's simply a summary, and sometimes, to be honest with you, I prefer something 80 to 89 while I'm working and smoking a cigar because I'm not paying that much attention to it anyways, and that way I'm not getting overpowered or distracted by, oh my gosh, this is an exceptional cigar, and I end up paying attention to the cigar instead of work.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think it's, as we're wrapping up kind of a few final thoughts here on Blind Cigar Reviews, it's important to keep in mind that it's not just a trend. I feel like it is really an essential tool for maintaining fairness, credibility, and other things in the cigar industry because it eliminates all those biases that we talked about earlier. And It gives consumers confidence, elevates hidden gems, as we've seen and talked about a few of those here
Absolutely.
tonight, and it helps ensure that the marketplace rewards quality over the hype.
Yep,
And whether it's done by major publications, boutique reviews, local cigar club, by yourself, or among friends, blind tastings provide the clearest lens through which to appreciate a true cigar's merit.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, guys, there is so much more detail we could go into tonight on this topic, but we're already a little over time, and we want to make sure we value your time and those who are watching on the replay. If you are watching this on the replay, go ahead and hashtag replayfam. If you're watching it tonight, go ahead and make sure you click the subscribe button or go out to Facebook. But let's do a final check on this cigar,
Okay.
and then let's reveal the cigars.
Okay. So it's had a little bit of transition for me. I'm not getting quite as much of that bitterness any longer that I was at first. So that's been nice.
Yeah, my final review, I'll give that to you, let you reveal the cigars. So my final review on this, and don't reveal it to it yet.
I'm not.
Yeah, I was worried. Final review on this cigar is it's dark, it's rich. If you like an espresso-y or kind of coffee notes, a little bit of bitterness, it's excellent. It is not overpowering. The strength has picked up. I would say it's probably closer to a medium full in this second, third.
Mm-hmm.
I'm feeling it in here a little bit, which again, to me, kind of leans back toward Nicaraguan tobacco because I really feel that in Nicaraguan tobacco. So it's great. I still have no idea what it is.
No, I have a
At all.
couple ideas, but I'm not confident enough.
Throw your
So-
two ideas out there.
Well, I saw the band's on.
All right. Okay, so let's reveal what we're smoking here tonight.
All right, so I think first one was correct. This is a gold star.
Come on.
So it's a good one. And this one, now that I've seen it, it makes sense. It is a Lure cigar. I am trying to figure out, and it's the Oscuro Nicaraguan from Lure.
Okay.
So I was trying to see which one.
All right. So this is the orange one, which
Yeah.
would be in the Toro.
The-
It's the Big Tony.
Yep, that's what I was going to say. It's the Big Tony.
So tonight we smoked the Big Tony is this cigar here. If you're not familiar with Lure cigars, they're excellent cigars. We had them on the podcast just a few weeks ago. Go back and check.
Yeah.
Also, the Gold Star, which was awesome by United Cigars. Love that. I
Yeah.
can't believe that. The freshness.
Yep.
It's that honeydew, honeysuckle freshness on the cold draw in the initial third that called that out for me. So what a fun experience. So glad to have you guys along this journey with us. We hope you guys enjoyed the blind reviews and how to set up a blind review. If you've not done that with your friends or those at your lounge, I highly encourage you to set something up soon. If you do that, drop a line on Facebook or Instagram and let us know, maybe a picture. Join the Cigar Rebel community on Facebook and share some of those details. And who knows, maybe here in the next few weeks, we'll do a online HERF and we'll take a registration. We'll send out cigars to you to
Yeah.
blind review.
Yeah.
But for tonight, I think that's about our show. Any
Yeah.
final thoughts, Mel?
No, I mean, hopefully you guys enjoyed this as much as we did. Don't forget to click that subscribe button. And if you're watching on the replay, still click that subscribe button. We're also available now anywhere you get your podcasts. So for everyone that watches us live, we will see you next Monday at 7.
And for those that in the comments about the expo, we'll see you in 18 days.